It is a real pleasure to moderate this first webinar of the cohort, the 2022 cohort for MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific. Thanks for the team for having me on to moderate this session. My name is Diane Buis. I am the U.S. Director of the U.S. program. And today we want to talk specifically about how to make a great pitch video. This is something that we make part of the cohort for all three cohorts. That is the US cohort currently with 54 companies, the Asia Pacific cohort that you're in that has 20 companies, and the BioTools cohort that has 14 companies. All of these companies we ask to make a really, really great 1-minute pitch video. It is a deliverable and the companies can win prizes for that video. So we encourage you to make a really great video. But of course, the point of that video is not just to win a prize for best video. However, our panelists have, and we'll talk about the value of winning the prize for best video. But more importantly, you have then a great video that explains your company. You can send it to people and say, watch my video. You'll know what I do in ways more succinct than I can write in an email. And so I want to welcome you all. I'm delighted you're here on the YouTube Live. I want to set a couple of ground rules. Please submit your questions. If you're live on the webinar, if you're part of the cohort, you can submit your questions with the Q&A function. If you're on the YouTube Live, you can submit your questions over there and our team will monitor them and make sure to forward them to us for this live discussion. And for the cohort companies, please stay on after we close the YouTube Live so that you can ask another couple of questions directly to our panelists. But with those ground rules, I want to welcome, on behalf of the entire team, I want to say thank you and welcome to our two esteemed panelists. We have Sarah Chung from Ophthalmic Technology. And what I'll do momentarily is I'll, if you're okay with it, Sarah, I'll roll your video in a second and show that off. And we have Rohan Dixit from Leaf Therapeutics. And so Sarah was part of the Asia Pacific program last year and won best video there. Rohan won best video at MedTech Innovator 2020 in the US program. And so we're delighted to have both of you here, and it'll be a fun juxtaposition of the videos and discussion going in there. So I encourage everyone who's listening and who has specific questions to jump in. The backdrop of all of this, and this is the last thing I'll say before rolling our first video, the backdrop of all of this is that we want you to tell a great story. And in years past, we have asked John Weiser at Sony to have a discussion with our CEO, Paul Grand. And so that video, we'll make that available in the chat as well as in the links for the YouTube Live. I encourage you strongly to review it. You can assume that all of us have reviewed that video. And if I were to summarize it in a sentence or two, which is impossible, there is a ton of really great knowledge in there. It is try not to cram all the information in a video. Try to make a video that captures the headlines of what you want to say so that somebody who sees that video wants to learn more. Paul, our CEO, often says a great video should either make somebody want to go back and say, can I quit my job and join your company? Or where do I send a check? Those are the two things that you ideally want out of a great pitch video. But in the absence of that, at the very least, somebody should go back and say, that sounds like a great company. I want to learn more about them. And so with that, no mean feat. Both of you have two excellent videos. I will start sharing my screen and first roll the video of Ophthalmic. So that is the video that Sarah and her team won with last year. Let me make sure I get that right. I am going to share, go full screen, and I hope we can hear the sound and see the video. Team, if you don't, please interrupt me.
Such as macular degeneration is a leading cause of blindness, which can be treated. But how many times would you happily stick a needle in your eye? For over 8 decades, we have been injecting drugs to patients' eyes with needles. An incredibly long, invasive surgical procedure that often requires repetitive doses. With Ophthalmics Technologies' Metic Touch, we use a non-invasive, low-energy ultrasound to create stable cavitation to deliver drugs, completely safe, with no risk of infections and sclerosis. The diffusion of drugs occurs from the sclera through the retina and directly to the macula, which is 10 times more efficient than an injection to the vitreous body. 60 seconds. That's the length of this video, and also how long our treatment will take. We provide an accessible, affordable, and comfortable new treatment for those in need.
Check out this verbo.
All right. Oops. I'm going to stop that. So fantastic video. It is no surprise to me, Sarah, that that you and your team won best video of last year. I'm going to just perhaps ask you and let you briefly comment. Did you review, basically, how did you prepare for making a video like this? And the bigger picture idea of what to leave in and what to leave out.
Yeah, thank you, Diane, for the question. Again, very, very happy to be back in the Metic Innovator community. And so, I mean, to answer your questions, we did a lot to prepare. And, you know, the first questions that we ask ourselves is, who do we want to be our audience, and what kind of message do we want to convey? Obviously, we want to tell people what we do at Ophthalmic, but the very key thing that we wanted to make sure that we incorporate into video is something that sticks, you know, something that people hopefully will remember. And so from the video that you just saw, the 60 seconds of our treatment time and also the length of the video, that was something that we tried really hard to come up with. And obviously it took a lot of creative juice, but that's kind of the direction that we started with.
That's excellent. I really appreciate that. With that, I'm going to pause and make sure that I roll Leaf Therapeutics video and ask Rohan a question about it. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen and roll Leaf Therapeutics video.
Mental health care is broken. 50 million Americans have anxiety or depression, but 2 out of 3 receive no treatment, costing human lives and hundreds of billions of dollars. There aren't enough mental health providers in the country to treat the scale of the problem. And with no objective biomarkers for mental health, it's hard to know who needs help. That's why Leaf pioneered a breakthrough smart patch that can track and improve a key biomarker of mental health. For many of us, it's hard to know when a thought or challenging situation could prompt a cycle of anxiety or depression. Leaf's patented biometric algorithms detect when the patient is most at risk, then automatically guides their breathing in a discrete, evidence-based intervention called heart rate variability biofeedback. Through targeted interventions throughout the day, Leaf can bend the behavioral health curve for patients gradually towards reduced mental health symptoms and greater physiological control. The Leaf device and mobile app connect to a network of more than 3,000 licensed mental health providers around the country, providing a robust telebehavioral health solution covered by most insurance plans.
Doing mundane tasks, I can kind of breathe and relax myself into a state of calm.
For patients with mental health challenges, it can often feel like there are no good options. But with Leaf Therapeutics, belief may be just a few breaths away.
You know, my wife's like, what'd you do after, 6 months?
All right. That's my challenges with YouTube. I really appreciate you being here, Rohan. Overarching question to you is really with a complex topic like this, what to include, what not to include. I find that one of the trickier things. Did you spend a lot of time storyboarding? How did you choose what to leave in, what to leave out?
Yeah, so first, great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, and I don't know if folks could see all of that video. There may have been a little bit of latency, but I think the main approach we took when thinking about storyboarding out what we were going to say is, how would you describe your company to somebody you met at a dinner party? So very short, right, and to the point.
Appreciate that. And so one of the reasons I'm personally so enjoying that juxtaposition of the two videos is that we see some different elements of style and different elements of visual storytelling. And so perhaps I'll start with you, Sarah. One of the tougher choices is always, how deep do I go into the technology? How much do I explain the vocabulary? What do I explain and what do I not explain? Where, you know, you're in the ophthalmology space. Do I explain some of the vocabulary that is specific to it? Do I explain the technology? How did you make those choices as to what to leave in and what not to explain?
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. So just like you mentioned, you know, we're in the ophthalmology space, which basically means everything, every single vocabulary is a mouthful. So, you know, we have spent a lot of time, you know, figuring out that exact question, what technical details to include. We have decided to include, as you can see in the video, quite a bit of it, because we felt like, you know, in terms of, say, our audience, if we are, you know, showing this to the general public, maybe if you don't have an issue with your eye, or you haven't had the experience with eye diseases, that might come across a little bit too technical. But, you know, our target is to reach patients in needs. And we came to a conclusion that we wanted to include these sort of technical details so that people in the field or people who have this sort of needs will directly know exactly what we are treating. So that's why at the end we decided to include this.
That's great. Rohan, I have seen videos that have a whole lot of technological language, as in what exactly is being measured and how often it is being measured. And you're not telling me all the specs, you're telling me a story. How hard was it to leave out the specs? Which specs, you know, which specs were the first ones that you let go, and which specs stayed the longest? And specs are specifications. Sorry, I drive myself into jargon. So, and that is one of the things that we try to not do, go into jargon. So coming back, how did you stay away from technical jargon and still make a strong case for what you're selling your consumer and your investor?
Yeah, I think from the perspective of some of the companies in the cohort, it's hard, right? You've come up with an amazing idea. It's probably not as straightforward as you know, the cooler that you know, keeps your beers cold for, you know, the whole time you're out at a park, and there's that complexity is interesting to you, of course, and you would assume it's interesting to other people too, but oftentimes it is. It's one thing to think about is progressive disclosure. So put yourself, have some empathy for how someone else is viewing you and where they're coming from and their frame of reference, their interest in what you're saying, and try to say the least amount that you need to get them excited and interested to ask you the next question. Because if they're not interested, then they're not going to be interested no matter how long you keep talking.
I can see that. And so how did you develop a script for the story you wanted to tell? A minute is really short. Often you do have to know what you want to tell. Did somebody write a script? How did you, and who, if so? Or was it more stream of consciousness? Let's get a whole lot of content and see what it feels like in the cutting room. Was there a script? I'll start with you, Rohan.
Yeah, I wrote a script, timed it, and then started to put it into a storyboard.
How about you, Sarah? Was there a script?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, thanks to the program, this is something that we've been long overdue to do, a video. So while we prepare for the 1 minute video, we actually took the advantage of making a longer video as well. to give more in-depth information to other viewers that we might see fit. So we did started with a long script. We at the end produced one minute video and also a 5 minutes video. So it was relatively easier this way in terms of the strategy. We started with a 5 minutes video, and at the end extracted from that to see, what is it from the 5 minutes that we really want to fit into the 1 minute that we have. So that's kind of the strategy we took at the end.
Got it. Rohan, I saw that you had some TV footage in your video as well. Was that right part of the storyboard, as in, okay, we got to show that we've got some TV traction, get that in there? Where did that fit?
Yeah, we looked at the video that we already had access to as well when thinking about, how to create the video for MedTech Innovator. And that was a clip that felt like it could provide a little bit of trust to our product, connected with a name that people already knew. So I would recommend if people have clips from news stations that they can use in some ways, if you can fit it in the right way, it can help build credibility.
And so perhaps I'll just stay with you for a second. How much footage did you already have? So you had that news footage. Did you have other footage to start with that was already ready to go?
Yeah, so people say that everyone is a content company now, right? In the age of social media. And I think that to some degree that's true. So we have lots of little video clips that we've created over the years for conferences, things that would play on monitors when we were at booths and exhibitions and stuff like that. So we drew on some of that for some of the material, and where it could, help the storyline for the specific audience of MedTech Innovator.
Got it. So that's helpful. Sarah, did you have any footage before you started? You mentioned this was overdue. So did you have anything in terms of footage already lying around that you could use, or did you have to start from scratch?
I would say we pretty much had to start from scratch. I mean, we did interviews here and there with different medias, but it wasn't footage that we could directly adopt. And so we have always wanted to have something of our own that we can use hopefully for a very long time. So yeah, I would say we had to start from scratch, or at least we wanted to start fresh.
That makes sense. And so maybe I'll stay with you then and just ask you, how long did the process take from, okay, we've got to do a video, let's storyboard that, to let's film that, let's cut that, from go to done? How long did that take?
Okay, so I think in short, it took around, say, 1 to 2 weeks for the preparation. And then we spent just 1 day to do all the filming. We actually spent most of the time in the post-production to do all the animation that you saw in the video. That actually took us most time for us to also work with the design agency. Obviously, we have to very precisely describe to them what to include, how to draw this. So that took us a bit of time, yeah. But overall, I would say around 2 weeks.
And that is including post-production?
Yes, correct, yes.
All right. And I'll stay there and just ask you, do you have a rough estimate of how much it cost you, and would you be willing to share that?
Yeah, sure. So like I mentioned, we took the advantage of making a longer video as well. And we have, I think if my memory serves, we've spent less than, say, $4,000 US on the overall whole project. Yeah.
Got it. I think that's very helpful, given that you're talking to an audience of people who are thinking about making their own video. Getting a rough metric can always be helpful.
Absolutely.
Rohan, I'm going to turn that straight around to you. So you had some footage, but clearly you shot more footage. How long did it take, and how much did it cost you, to your best knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to Sarah. I think we spent a lot more time in preparation for a shoot. So storyboarding, which if people don't know, is kind of just planning out what the shots will look like in order, maybe a little bit about how you want the shot to go, what should be happening in it. putting in all that time ahead of time so that when you work with a maybe a professional photographer, videographer, maybe actors, maybe friends, you can go in and exactly get what you need. And so I think it's very similar timing, and also I think probably total amount of money as well, around 5K for this.
So in that case, I think I'm gonna just stay straight on the actors and
I've been getting
voiceovers
paid
and
$1,000 a month.
sorry, my video is fighting me. Staying on the actors, so having your own content versus bringing on other people, narrators, actors, but also outside footage. How much did you do homegrown? How much did you bring in outsiders? Rohan, I'm staying with you for a second.
Yeah, so a lot of homegrown. So the voice narrator you can hear there is a friend of mine who I met at a meditation center, meditation circle with some friends. The animator was someone I came across in a Facebook group randomly and reached out to. Super talented, up and coming kind of animator, and also edited our video. So, you know, but we also hired actors for certain parts of that, as well as a videographer to do some of the shoots where we were in San Francisco and needed to get footage shot in a certain way. So kind of a mix of both, but I think everybody here will be familiar with making it work as well as you can, having a startup and a small company. So find the resources that you have available to you. You're still a small company, so people will sometimes try to help the fight and do you a favor.
That's fantastic. Sarah, how did that go for you? So you mentioned an animation studio. How did you find them? Did you get quotes from different people? Especially given that, you know, the cohort listening is probably taking direct notes, as in, how did you find them? How much, you know, how should they find someone? I know that Rohan is in the US. Not everybody will want to bring in a US company, but how did you find help? And were you happy with it?
Yeah. So in case people don't know, we are based in Hong Kong. And in terms of how we found the agency, it was a friend of ours. And also, actually, we have collaborated in a past filming session before, like I mentioned, for other medias. And we just felt very comfortable with them. And I think that's very important that they already somehow know your story. And of course, the whole thing was done under the pandemic. So we did, I would say, most of the stuff homegrown. And, you know, all the filming, it was at our office. You know, you saw our founder, Langston, doing the narrating and everything else. So yeah, we did face some sort of challenges doing this under COVID. You know, actually during that time, our office was implementing a work from home policy. So, you know, we had to just keep the headcount minimal while we did the filming. But yeah, I'm glad it turned out okay.
That's excellent. And just staying on the tactics front, Rohan, the opening shots of your video has what to me may be some stock footage. So did you purchase stock footage? Did the agency you worked with or the people you worked with, did they have stock footage? How much of that did you design or did other people contribute? It can be really daunting when you're doing a video for the first time to even think, what do I want to see and where do I get that?
Yeah, so those intro scenes are stock footage, and also the outro scene is stock footage. So that, yeah, we had a mix of assets that we purchased, sound that we purchased. There are, you know, sites online you can search for licensed material, both video and audio, that you can use in your creative works.
Got it. Sarah, how did you choose between yourself and Langston, for example, who was going to be on camera? Was that challenging? Was that clear from the get-go? How did you make those choices?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, it was a very easy decision for me because Langston has always been the face of the company. He did the most of the interviews before, so it was a no-brainer that, you know, we wanted to associate our brand with his face. So it was an easy question for us.
Got it. Rohan, how about for you? You are mostly the pitching face of the company, and so in the video you are not you are there, but you're not front and center. You're not talking to the camera. How was that choice made?
Yeah, I think you could definitely go either way on that, and sometimes the founding team making the pitch is a very strong way to do it. So I would recommend that for most people. We chose to not do that because it was such a short video, and also because we're dealing with mental health, and mental health is very personal. All people have struggled with mental health at some point, and so we didn't want to focus it too much on one face, but rather tell the story of mental health being something that everyone kind of faces, so that was the idea behind having a lot of different people in the video.
I can see that. And how important is it to have something that is an actual working prototype versus something that you can make work? It's a video, it's not a demo. And so I'd love to hear from both of you how far along you were with what you showed in the video. I'll start with you, Sarah.
Yeah, you can see some footage in the video of our current device. And we actually, struggle quite a bit as well, because it's not a finished product per se. But we felt like the need to show people something, because what we're working with is relatively novel. So it's very hard for people to grasp their head around, ultrasound, drug delivery, what does that mean? So we wanted to have something real on the video, just to give a sense of, reality. Yeah.
And I'll stay with you for a second and kind of just press on a little bit. You're talking about something that is in practice applied directly to the eye. Getting an actual good video shot of that might be a little scary. And so was that part of the consideration of why you used animation? You show a product and then you switch to animation. Was that the logic behind it? Or were there other considerations for why not to show it directly in action? Which is, where I want to come back to Rohan. We see his applied to the body. It's a very different device. What were those considerations against directly showing that eye?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly like you mentioned. I mean, a lot of people can be quite squeamish when it comes to the eye, not to mention a needle. So we also wanted this to be, we wanted to stay a little bit more sensitive in terms of, say, how much are we showing in this video, which potentially can be used for on a public domain. So that's something that we decided to leave out at the moment, especially for the short video. But we did include more footages in the long video, like I mentioned before. Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. You've got another one to go into more detail. Rohan, yes. You show your device in action. Was that and was that at the time a fully functional prototype? Would you say you got to have something that is ready to go by the time you film? How was that?
Yeah, so we'd actually just gotten out to the market at that time with our Class 2 FDA device. But I would say in general, even if you are not there, even if you were at the prototype stage or earlier, they call it movie magic for a reason. So always try to show, not tell, and show something, get people interested. There's ways to play with camera angles and lighting and all kinds of stuff to just get people to want to learn more. And this is a short video, right? So the purpose is really to be a teaser.
That I absolutely can wholeheartedly agree with that. I want to pause and just say, folks who are listening live, this is your chance to ask these people questions. I am not seeing any questions in the Q&A, and this is your chance. These folks have made great videos, and we are looking at you to make great videos very soon. So use the chance to ask big questions, small questions. That's exactly what we have these panelists for. But while I wait for you to type some questions, I've got some more questions, of course. And part of what I'm always interested in is this is now a little bit ago. So some time has elapsed since the video. I would love to hear from you, how the video competition went, and what that did for you as a company. But then also, what has happened since? What type of reception have the videos gotten? And I'll start with Sarah. Sarah, so it's been a minute. It was probably fun to just review the video. Oh yeah, remember that. But how have you made use of it since?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, it's been a really useful material for us to use. We use it for a lot of different occasions when it comes to, client pitching, investment pitching, or someone just interested to say, hey, I've heard about your company. Can you tell me a little bit more? And we can just very quickly send them this video just to get a snapshot. And like Rohan mentioned, it's meant to be a teaser. So we cannot practically fit everything of the information in this 1 minute video. So, it's really just to give it highlight, and it's been really useful for us. But, looking back, we feel like, obviously there's always something that we can do better. And, this is something that we plan to say periodically review and potentially even to refilm that in the future. But so far, it's been really helpful material for us.
That's great. Happy to hear it. Rohan, what has happened since? And, do you still use the video? How has it come handy or not? How would you wish it were different?
Yeah, I think we have found a couple of the videos from the MedTech, our experience with MedTech Innovator helpful. So this video is one. There's also a 3-minute investment pitch video that we made that was also very helpful and we used a lot. I think similar to Sarah, we also feel like we could do a better job going forward. So would hope to come back to it at some point and with more money and resources and time. But yeah, I think in general, for us, because we have a direct to consumer part of our business, we pull back even more from some of the language in that video, which was more geared towards investment and medical device industry audience. So I think mixed bag. We've gotten certainly like a lot of utility out of it, as well as other videos from the MTI, but it's a work in progress as always.
That makes perfect sense. And I'm seeing some questions coming in. That makes me very happy. Keep them coming. I see them. I want to follow up a little bit with what are if you could make changes to the video now, just like you said, with unlimited time and money, we would do endless things. I'll stay with you, Rohan. What are the types of things that you would change now, or perhaps turning that around? What are the things that looking at your video, you would say, don't do it this way, do it this way to the folks listening?
Yeah, gosh, that's such a tough question to answer for everybody because we're all coming from such different spaces and our products are different. Our audiences are different. I think we could have cleaned the editing up a little bit, better transitions, better sound. Yeah, many things, I think.
That's fair, but what it tells me is that you are thematically still aligned with it. Your answer is a technical answer. It is not a, oh my God, I wouldn't have talked about this. I shouldn't have talked about this thing. We should have talked about that thing. I'm happy to hear it. That's good. Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, actually, that's an easy question for me. Because like I mentioned before, we took a strategy on making a longer video and extract from that. Looking back, that if you ask me, that's something that I might reconsider, because it came across to me like, oh, maybe it's in terms of say the coherence of the story for the 1 minute. On that front, I feel like that on that front we definitely can do better. But while I'm speaking, I just wanted to also tell the audience that don't stress about making a perfect video. I mean, there are a million audience out there, and of course you want one video to, show your investors or your clients or, general public. It's just impossible to have one single video that, one size fit all. So, just very quick advice, I would say, don't try and stress over it being perfect. Yeah.
I think that's, in general, excellent startup advice. It's a startup. It is by definition imperfect. So I can only double down on that. I want to, just as it follows nicely on this, I want to pick up on part of the question that Janelle Lowe from Avis Health asked, and we'll get to the other part of the question in a minute, Janelle. But call to action very often, and so that I was leading to that. Do you regret not saying such a thing as, and therefore we ask you to join in our journey to infinity and beyond? I'm overdrawing it, but is that something that you consider? I'll start with you, Sarah. Or is that something that you that you decided, in order to keep the video broad, maybe a call to action is not the right thing? Did you consider it? What do you think about a call to action?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to answer this question, it's definitely very, it depends on the company stage. For example, like a consumer product, of course you want to talk directly to your clients and your potential consumers, say, look at us today, and all that, a lot of call to actions that you can do. But I think, specified in a lot of, say, medtech companies like us, we are not out there in the market. And of course, we want to make a difference in the industry. But, it's just a fact that, in terms of, say, call to action, we cannot have, say, a few, to be fit in such a broad video. Yes.
That makes sense. Rohan, how about a call to action on your end?
Yeah, great idea. Where were you when we were filming the video? Yeah, I mean, for us, this video was specific for the MTI conference, and when we shared it with investors, the ask was pretty clear. We're raising money. Here's a round. Here's time. Yeah, I think it's great to include. It's great to include a call to action in general. You want to guide your audience on a journey and then ask them to do something for you. So that's great advice.
And perhaps to follow on that, did you review a lot of previous years' videos to kind of get a feeling for what do you like, what do you not like? Some people have a call to action, some people don't have a call to action. Or how did you find inspiration? Inspiration has many sources. I'll stay with you, Rohan. Did you watch past MedTech Innovator videos? Did you watch advertisements on TV? How did you find inspiration for how you wanted to tell your story?
Yeah, we did watch a lot of videos from the past, and that was really helpful. I think the tricky thing with this particular competition is that the call to action is really, kind of like vote for me in this specific competition, and you might want to use the video for other things beyond that. So. You could film potentially a couple different versions and use it as you might like. So that's a thought if it's helpful to anyone.
That's fair. Sarah, how did you go about figuring out what you wanted to be in that video? Did you watch old videos? Did you find a favorite video? I should have asked Rohan that. I might tell you what, pause. Rohan, did you quickly find a favorite video between you and your team to say, this is roughly what we want to do? And you may not remember, so you can pass on that question, but it just occurred to me to poke and see if there were videos that you modeled yours after.
Yeah, not explicitly, but I think it helps to look at the format and the genre and be inspired, so definitely recommend looking at those videos, especially ones that have done well. There's a reason for it, so there's something you can learn. And maybe one quick point just to add to that, which is many times people coming from a technical background or a clinical background may not see the value in making this video. We're creating this medical device company. Why do we need to make this video? Why is this important? I would just encourage people to do the exercise and really put time and thought into it, because I think there is value in learning to communicate and tell a story and kind of have a narrative arc, and that would just be a skill that is very complementary to the skills that you already have. So
yeah, I can see that. Great point. Sarah, how about you? Reviewing videos, finding a favorite?
Yeah, first of all, I second what Rohan mentioned. Yeah, but so in terms of SEO videos, I think we watch as much as we can, if not all of it, to get an idea of what a 1-minute video looks like. And on top of that, we also tried and gather all the biggest brands that you can think of. I don't recall the exact ones that we watched, but I remember IKEA. So I remember that where the idea of having something sticks came from. We want to do something that, okay, maybe people can hopefully remember this after watching the video. So that's kind of where that idea came from. But yeah, absolutely, we watch as much video as we wanted, and also with the help of the agency as well. They didn't come from a medical background, technical background, so we actually encouraged them to do the same. We practically forward them like hundreds of videos, say, okay, if you want to know more, please watch this, and watch this before our meeting tomorrow. So that I remember that conversation that we had with them.
That's great, and I think that ties in nicely with a question that we just got from Xiaoying Huang, who is from Easy MRI. He's asking, is it critical to basically, is it critical to be very specific around making a video for MedTech Innovator for this program versus a more general one? And so where do you draw that balance between making a very specific video and the inspiration for a very specific video, versus the broader sense you just mentioned, an IKEA video, getting inspiration that is more broadly around great storytelling as opposed to storytelling that is very specific and narrow to a particular audience? So would you, I'll stay with you, Sarah. What is there, is it critical, are there elements that are critical to involve in a video like this that are different from general, say, the IKEA video? And what would you say are they?
Yeah, I think following up from what I mentioned a little bit earlier, that when it comes to a medtech company, it highly depends on what stage or how much you want to disclose as a company. Because it's it depends on your tech readiness, your product readiness, and of course we wanted to include a sort of like a short, like the animation that you saw, something that could hopefully describe to the audience what we actually do. Maybe this is specifically for our company, but it is something, from experience, it's something that a little bit difficult to understand, our ultrasound technology. So that's why for this video, we felt like we had to include this sort of technical elements in it. But I would really say it highly depends on your company and your company stage and so on.
That makes sense. Rohan, anything to add or differ there?
Yeah, definitely makes sense to shoot footage that you can use again. So, the editing room is a magical place. You can do a lot there. So if you have, shots of the user, of the patient interacting with the device, shots of the doctor speaking about it from different perspectives, you can pull those apart later and create other video content out of it. So that would be, I think, ideal, right? Makes sense. You can use it again and again in other contexts.
And perhaps just following up on that, what do you think the shelf life of that video is? So if I fast forward another 5 years, do you think you'll need a completely different video? Do you think you'll, so is a video like this useful for a year or 2 or 3? Is it useful for 10 years? What's the shelf life of a video like this, Rohan?
Depends how slowly your company is growing, probably.
Fair.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's value in and we did send this video to people in the short term, and in the medium term. I think in the longer term we'll come back to it. We'll revise it. will have different takes on it, and that's just a natural process with everything in your company. Nothing is finished. It's always an iteration, and it's to get to the next milestone. And so, that's how I think we approach this.
That's I hear you on that one, and we'll tell, right? So maybe a couple of years from now, we should have this call again and figure out how well those videos aged. But there's to follow up on a more tactical question that Janelle Lowe asked earlier, and I want to make sure that folks on the webinar continue to ask questions. If you have them, bring them on. But Janelle asked a tactical question regarding narration. Would you have a first person or a third person? What do you think works better? And did you try out different things? Rohan, I might start with you. Very clearly, there's third person narration in your case. Was that a conscious choice? Did you just not want to pitch?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, there was a kind of sense in watching the other MedTech innovator videos that there was a little bit of a kind of step back and telling a story from a third person perspective. And so maybe that's why we chose to go for the third person. But I think that there's a lot of power in telling a story directly, even if it's not exactly perfect, because people just love stories and they connect with the other human beings. So if you can tell a first person story, like from a patient perspective, or maybe even from a clinical perspective, I would encourage you to try that.
Sarah, you have Langston pretty much telling the story. Did you consider a third party narrating the story? How did you make that choice?
Yeah, I think for us it was a natural decision. Like I keep repeating myself that working in innovation, we wanted to make sure that this is real. We didn't want it to sound like science fiction, so we felt like it was more useful to have an actual face telling the story. Yeah,
I can see that. And perhaps I'll broaden the question to, Rohan, you just mentioned clinicians, but I want to broaden it more to key opinion leaders, to bringing in other voices, right? When we tell stories, we're often told we need a hero. So sometimes we draw up a problem and then the hero can be your product, that is the solution. Sometimes we draw on key opinion leaders, physicians to tell us the ultimate truth, or we draw on patients who share their stories around how difficult the life was before this. Now there's this. I know that in your video, Rohan, we see a couple of patients, a couple of users using the product in daily life. So in this case, I can see your choices, but what were your considerations for different voices? And not just voices in terms of narration, but voices in who are we looking at, who is sharing the story with us, who are we seeing and hearing?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah. So it's a 60-second video, so that's a constraint for all of us, right? But I think there are narrative arcs that tend to be repeated a lot over time. You mentioned the hero. The hero's journey is one. I don't know if you can do a hero's journey in 60 seconds, but probably could. And then there's also the paradigm of a typical pitch deck, right? There's a reason that it follows kind of this formula of problem, solution, go to market, right? You're sort of setting the stage for, well, what is the big problem? Why now? What's this new thing? Look how amazing it could be. Yeah, come ask me more questions because I'm sure you're interested. So yeah, I mean, I think there are different ways you can tell that story. You could imagine telling it entirely from the perspective of the patient, right? And just talking about their life, maybe a couple details of their life, how the technology impacted them, and ending there. And so there's like so much creative freedom I think you could have with this, depending on your technology and depending on how you want to tell the story.
Great. Sarah, how did you choose what to include and what not to include. Did you consider bringing in a patient or a key opinion leader or a physician? How did you look at that?
Yeah, for this very first video that we produced by ourselves, that's something that we obviously considered. But at the end, we decided to stick to the technical facts and just making sure that we convey our message to tell people who we are. But that's definitely an idea that we have for our, say, next video. Yeah.
Got it. And one of the things that you mentioned a pitch deck, Rohan, and so one of the things that that one could wonder about is if this were the equivalent of a pitch deck, there would be a slide about financials. Is a video like this a place for financials?
I don't think so. Yeah,
I don't think so. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, I second that. I don't think it would be a good place to mention financials. Of course, being in the medtech industry, we want to be patient focused. We want to make, at the end of the day, we are all scientists, technical people. We want our tech, we want our product out there. So in terms of, say, a corporate video, especially given the short frame of time, I don't think it would be a good place to be to put numbers.
That makes sense. And so market size, I know Rohan's video starts with a couple of numbers on market size. I think Langston talks about the market size. If I remember well, we don't see numbers on screen. Was that a conscious choice to really stay focused on the technology and not go through a whole lot of graphs or things like that pertaining to what the market is, but really focusing on the solution?
Yeah, I mean, when I mentioned numbers, I meant the actual financials of it.
Yeah.
But definitely
Yeah,
in terms of, say, market size and so on, we obviously want to also convey the message of how big of an impact this is. And so, yeah, I feel like that's our decision is to stick to presenting the solution rather than going into the details.
Makes perfect sense. And Rohan, we saw that you had market size. You pretty much open with market size graphs and stock footage. I'm going to kind of just looking at the time, I am going to close the public version of this webinar and YouTube Live with two questions for both of you. One being whether there are resources, people, agencies, stock footage, ways to find people to help you do this. So specific resources that you feel comfortable recommending. And of course, more broadly, general advice for the folks that now have to make great videos moving forward. And I'll start with you, Sarah, if you're okay with it. So any resources that you feel comfortable sharing, and that doesn't have to be immediately either. We'll happily post links later on. But if you have any that you feel like, oh, in a past webinar, somebody said, we just hired voiceover actors from Fiverr. That is something that I hadn't thought about. And so here we go. It can be mundane resources. It can be sophisticated resources of, say, stock footage or what have you. So resources, and then general advice to the companies who are going to make videos. Anything on either or both of those fronts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, on the resources, I feel like because making of a video, it's a kind of a physical thing. So if anyone out there is, located in near Hong Kong and, nearby areas, we're very happy to refer resources. We actually worked closely with our agency, which, like I mentioned, we worked with them before on other medias. So that also, brings me to the general suggestions to the cohort that if you have at all, work with these sort of agencies or any even freelancers, friends, I mean, you use this is your resources, and it's nothing wrong with starting fresh, but it's also nice to work with someone that already know who you are, or at least have an idea of what you do. That make the great difference for us when we produced our video.
That makes sense. Rohan, same question to you. Specific resources that you can think of that that folks should know, as well as general advice.
Yeah, so we shot these videos in California in the United States. So not sure how helpful that is to everybody, but if it is, feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm happy to help and make introductions where it's helpful. I think that Fiverr is not a bad suggestion. There are other design-oriented websites out there where freelance videographers and creative people in general post their whole portfolios. So one thing that I would recommend doing is, agencies might be more expensive than freelancers, maybe as a general rule, but an agency will kind of take you through the whole process and put the pieces together for you. If you want to use less budget, you can try to be the marionette yourself and sort of, bring in the videographer, do a little storyboarding, find an animator, and kind of be the hub there as well. And that's where those third-party freelancing sites can be really helpful. And the last question was just general advice.
Indeed.
Yeah, just I think show the storyboard to other folks. Maybe even just write out what you want to say first and deliver that to different types of people and see what they think. Get feedback on that script, because the content is going to be really important. So yeah, that would be my advice.
What I heard there is customer discovery does not just pertain to your product, it also pertains to your video. And as a big fan of customer discovery, I am making a mental note of that. With that, I want to express my personal and ours as a team heartfelt thanks for both of you to be here. Really appreciate your insights. Also appreciate you being open to folks reaching out to you with questions. I think one of the things that we appreciate so much is the community of MedTech Innovator alumni who have gone through the program, who know exactly where our current cohort companies are and can put themselves in their shoes. And so your support of the next generation is very much appreciated, and we very much appreciate your time today. We are going to let go of the folks who are on the YouTube live, and we ask you two panelists to stay on with us to see if the current cohort has additional questions for us to continue. With that, we're going to end the YouTube live, and I will ask my colleague Sakina to come back on and help me moderate any questions that this current cohort has.